So you want to learn about the energy pyramid. The energy pyramid is the basics of prioritizing building improvements in regards to their energy usage. So whether you want to be an energy engineer, you want to add energy services to your business, or you're a DIY homeowner, the basics of the energy pyramid will give you the confidence to speak to energy improvements and prioritizing which one comes next. It's really the basics of what an energy engineer does. And so whether you only offer a fraction of the services within the energy pyramid, or like you're only looking to install solar panels or do one of the things, it's important to understand the prioritization of energy improvements because it'll give you a better idea of whether you're making the right decision. If you're just installing solar panels, well, you might be surprised to find out that there are 4 other steps that you should at least consider before installing solar panels. You are saving energy. You are on the front lines of climate change because every itty bit counts. So what are the problems that we are solving with the energy pyramid? It's really 3: energy inefficiency, wasted resources, and energy management. If you're here, I'm sure you know about climate change, and I'm not going to pound down those facts. And so we're just going to focus on buildings, their emissions, because buildings contribute to almost 40% of the world's emissions. And there are really 2 types of emissions when it comes to buildings. We have embodied carbon emissions and operational carbon emissions. So let's first break down embodied carbon emissions. When we take a look at the life cycle of a building, everything from starting with collecting the materials. So for example, if it's a stick-built building with wood, considering going into the forest with trucks and equipment to cut down the trees, and then traveling that wood to a manufacturing plant that cuts the wood into lumber, and then taking that lumber to your big box store where you then drive your car to the store to buy the lumber, or the contractor does, to the site to build the building. All of the emissions that are considered with the equipment, the manufacturing facility, and everything that it takes to cut down the trees, to all of the rest of the materials that it takes to build the building, are considered embodied carbon emissions. Likewise, at the end of the life cycle of a building, when it is being deconstructed, the equipment that it takes to deconstruct the building, to transferring it to either a landfill or a recycling facility, to the emissions that it takes to actually recycle the materials. All of that as well is considered the embodied carbon emissions from a building. But today with the energy pyramid, we're actually going to focus on the operational carbon emissions for a building. And those are all of the carbon emissions that it takes to operate and maintain a building today. And so you might be thinking, well, most things are electric, but I do have a gas boiler in the house or something like that. Well, even if you're connected to the grid, most power plants today still use fossil fuels. So even if most things in your house are electric, it is still producing carbon emissions indirectly because you are connected to the grid, and the grid is powered by fossil fuel power plants. And so even reducing the energy usage in your building, you are reducing carbon emissions because that is less energy that your building then demands from the power grid, and thus the power plants that are generating that energy. If you don't follow the energy pyramid method, and there are exceptions to it, you don't have to follow it step by step. However, there are consequences to not following this method. Including unhappy customers or just finding maintenance issues. If you're not actually solving the root of the problem, you're still going to have customers that come back and complain to you because their spaces are still too hot or still too cold or still too humid. and what have you. Also, you could just have missed opportunities. If you don't follow the energy pyramid, then you might miss opportunities to expand the project. If you have a customer that's coming to you asking for solar, well, what about those 4 steps that come before solar? Insulation and energy efficiency and demand management. All of these other methods are used to reduce the building's energy consumption first, and therefore leaving you with a smaller solar system size, which ultimately makes the customer a lot more happy. They now have a more efficient building, and their solar system, even though it's smaller and it was cheaper, still provides sufficient energy generation for their building. All right, so let's get into the energy pyramid. This is the new and improved Itty Bit Better energy pyramid. If you go to the Itty Bit Better site today, this is July 2023, you will see a pyramid with only 4 steps. However, everything is expanding, and I've decided to add these additional 2 steps because they are in a lot of conversations within the industry today. They are important. Engineers are still talking about them. So I decided to add them into the Itty Bit Better energy pyramid. And what they are: conservation, efficiency, demand, generation, storage, and management. And if you want an easy way to remember the order of the energy pyramid, just remember this saying: clever energy decisions generate sustainable milestones. So let's start with clever, or conservation. This is the first step. Starting from the bottom of the energy pyramid, this is where you should always start, no matter what energy services or just general services you offer. This is where you should start. In general, this is removing energy waste from the building. And typically that means taking a look at fenestration and insulation. Fenestration typically refers to the windows and doors of a building. And so what that's referring to is air infiltration through windows and doors. So even whether you're in a climate that's hot or cold, if you have air infiltration, air getting in through leaks and cracks around windows and doors, close them up. You are using energy to condition a space and then losing that conditioned air through those leaky windows and doors. So whether it's through windows and doors or insulation, which will be adding insulation through the exterior walls, the roof, and sometimes even the floor of the building to reduce that heat transfer that you experience even through the walls. So even in my house, slowly but surely, we were making more and more improvements to it. One thing that I still want to do is add insulation to our floor. We have a crawl space underneath our floor, and we have only a layer of wood, and there's no subfloor. And so the wood planks get very breezy, and we have a lot of heat transfer through the floor of our home. So we want to get insulation in order to reduce that heat transfer. And you might be thinking, well, typically heat rises, so you're not losing that heat in the winter, or you're not gaining that heat in the summer through the floor. But actually, heat moves from high to low places. And so if it gets hotter underneath the crawl space than it is in the house, then it's going to rise from underneath. And similarly in the winter time too, it's the heat that's moving. And so yeah, I want to get some insulation in our crawl space. Also, as we move through the energy pyramid, you can also think of money or like your finances as a good analogy as to where this priority comes from. So as we start with conservation, think of a piggy bank. When you're young and you have money, your parents teach you to save. Save the money that you already have. Conserve. And so think about, your first piggy bank that you got, and you got money from your birthday or Christmas, and you take that money and you simply put it in that piggy bank. The first step is to conserve what you already have and remove the waste. The next layer of the energy pyramid is energy efficiency. And in terms of money, you can think of the first time that your parents took you to a bank to not just save your money physically in the piggy bank, but bringing it to an actual bank that's a little bit more efficient in saving your money. Now you have a way to view it online or on your phone, and now you also have an interest rate. So that's pretty cool, even if it is only a 0.1%. So when we consider energy efficiency of a building, there are 3 different ways to improve the energy efficiency. The 3 ways to target energy efficiency of a building are either replace, upgrade, or improve the systems in your building. So HVAC systems typically use the most energy in your building. And so that's mostly what I mean when I'm talking about either replacing, upgrading, or improving the system, but that could really go for anything. Although there's just more examples, I think, when we're talking about HVAC. So what do I mean by those 3 things? So either you can replace the system with like for like, so replace it with the new version of that system. If it is an HVAC system, if you just replace it, if it's already 10 years old and you replace it, the new one that you replace it with, it's, everything's well lubricated, nothing's corroded, nothing has deteriorated. So just naturally, it's going to be more efficient and work better than the one that you previously had installed. Say you have a very large building with rooftop units all over the building. Well, maybe you decide, this building is large enough. Let's take out those rooftop units and put in a chiller system. Well, there is a lot to consider with that, and that's not the case for everybody because there is a lot of construction costs to do something like that. But in some cases, that may be more beneficial because overall, a chiller for this particular building may be more efficient for not only providing conditioned spaces for the building, but also maintenance with the facility crew and long-term maintenance and operation of the building. That would be an example of upgrading the system. Finally, you could also improve the system that you already have, or if you are replacing the system, you can replace it and improve it with accessory equipment. So for example, if you have a rooftop unit for your HVAC system, depending on where you are, maybe you want to install an economizer. Economizer utilizes the outside air to cool a space if it is cool enough outside to bring the space to the desired temperature. If you're working with a chiller system, you might want to install variable flow pumps or VAV systems, variable airflow systems, and other things like that you're not necessarily replacing or upgrading the system, but you can improve the existing system with the accessory equipment. And all of that also falls under energy efficiency. And this goes for other equipment in the building as well. If you're taking a look at your lighting in the building, upgrading from incandescent light bulbs to LED light bulbs, which if you don't have LED light bulbs yet, what are you doing? Please just install LED light bulbs. They are more efficient and they just make sense. Just do it. Also, transformers. If you're considering a large commercial building, upgrading transformers, if they are at their end of useful life, often make sense and often pay back very quickly. If you're considering a home or even a large kitchen in a facility, taking a look at the appliances and maybe considering more Energy Star appliances in your home or building will also save you energy. And considering the energy efficiency of the appliances all fall under energy efficiency of the energy pyramid. Energy, energy, energy. So the next level of the energy pyramid, demand response, or decisions in the sentence. Demand has to do with your power that you're consuming for the building compared to your utility rate that your building is on. So considering back to that money example, you're saving your money, you took your money to the bank, but now you need to do some management of your money. You can't take out too much all at once because then you'll be charged. And maybe you also can't put too much in. And so taking consideration of those big spikes in your energy is not really preferred because you can get charged a lot for big power draws all at once, which is not necessarily good for your building, and you're being charged a lot because the grid and the power plants don't like it very much because it's preferred that your energy profile of your building is very flat. But of course, that's not always possible. And that's why you get charged for big power demand spikes. So in order to manage your building demand, you really need to understand how your utility rate works. And I did this other video on how to read your utility bill. However, I'll probably do another video on looking at rates even more specifically. But basically all you need to know is when are your peak demand periods. Most likely you're on a TOU rate, which stands for time of use, and which generally means that during different times of the day, you're being charged different amounts for your energy and your power. And so if you have a high demand during that peak period, you're going to be charged more. But it also depends on your rate, because you may have a rate where you're going to be charged for that peak demand no matter what time of day you reach it. But it all depends on your rate. So ideally, just don't turn everything all on at one time. You want to either run your dishwasher or your washing machine, not both at the same time. Because if you turn on everything at the same time, you're going to have a very high power demand on your utility bill, and you're going to be charged for that. So if you have a large facility, then all that means is implementing some controls and some automation for the equipment in your facility. So also setting a schedule for your HVAC system, for if you know that people are entering the office at 8 a.m. every day, well, instead of turning on the HVAC at 8 a.m. when everyone enters the building, instead pre-cool the building an hour or so before everyone gets there. And that'll avoid a very high peak on your HVAC system in the morning. That's a pretty common one that we see when we're looking at energy bills and energy profiles. Now we're saving money. We brought our money to the bank. We are managing our money. Now we can change the source of our money or our energy. So now we are taking our energy or our money and maybe investing it. And I like to use that example because you could also earn money that way through investments, or in this case, different energy generating systems like solar panels, for example. At this point, in terms of energy and our buildings, we've removed all of the waste from our buildings. We've made our building very efficient by taking consideration the equipment and what is using energy. Now we are scheduling everything and reducing the demand on our energy building profile. So now, if we want to take in consideration maybe a different energy generating system, whether it's solar panels or something else, will be smaller. So ultimately, you're going to save money on your system because it's a smaller system. You've lowered your energy building profile, and so now you don't need to generate as much energy. So again, either you or your client is saving money again. All right, the next level of the energy pyramid is energy storage. And I've run out of money analogies for us. However, but that's okay. We're going to keep moving up. Energy storage. So similarly with your renewable energy system or energy generating system, no matter what it is, your energy storage system will also be smaller, because at this point we know how much energy we're using. We know our utility rate, so we know what are the most expensive time of the day is, and we know the cheapest time of the day in terms of energy and the power grid. So even if we don't want to come off the grid completely, now having a way to store our energy gives us a lot more options in how we want to use our energy. Because if we have solar panels on our building, we are restricted to the sun. At night, there is no sun, so we can't use the energy generated from our solar panels. But if we have a way to store that energy, say if your solar panels are producing more energy than you actually need during the middle of the day, you can now take that energy and use it at night when you're watching TV and washing your dishes and all of those other things that consume energy when the sun's not up. And so energy storage comes next, because once you know the amount of energy that you're producing and the size of your energy generating system, now you'll have a pretty good idea of if you'll have anything left over and how you want to manage that energy storage. And finally, the top of the pyramid, energy management. When it comes to management of the energy of your building, it comes down to another three things: monitor, analyze, and optimizing the energy in your building. And now energy management can mean a handful of different things, whether it's managing the energy that you're generating on site, or managing the energy that you're taking from the grid, or just managing the energy that you're using within the building. A lot of this includes installing maybe an energy management system to take a look at all of these things, building automation systems, so you're automating when certain equipments turn on and off, people schedules, so you're taking a look at when people are in the building, how many people are in the building, where they are in the building, and what systems are also going to make those spaces most comfortable. And all those types of things kind of come last to really optimize all of the things that kind of come together in terms of managing all of the energy and operationally of the building. Because, let's face it, things change all the time. Not only, we saw during the pandemic, people were not even in office buildings. And then coming back from the pandemic, there were just less people in the office. Also, rates change from the utility companies all the time. Weather changes, and so your solar panels aren't producing as much energy anymore. And so there are so many moving parts when it comes to buildings and energy management. It really helps to implement automation, controls, and software systems to help you monitor, analyze, and optimize all of the energy, equipment, systems, and schedules when it comes to your buildings. I know it's a lot of information when it comes to the energy pyramid, and though I hoped this makes it more simpler to have a method to follow when it comes to energy, but just take it one step at a time. You don't have to implement everything for the building. and just take a look at what your customers or what your needs and wants are, and just take it one step at a time, because every itty bit counts. So to recap, we have conservation, energy, demand, generation, storage, and management. Clever energy decisions generate sustainable milestones. So if you think the energy pyramid is going to help you, please share in the comments. I'd love to hear how you think this is going to help you in your business or in your home, or if you're deciding to be an energy engineer, I'd love to hear what you think about the energy pyramid. Did it help? Did it make things more confusing? Please let me know. Also, if this was helpful, feel free to sign up for my newsletter. It goes out only once a month. I promise not to spam. And it includes tips and tricks and just other resources that will probably make you an itty bit better. I'll see you next time.